All right, so today we're going to focus on this chevron pattern of rhombus twists in this flagstone style. It's going to be a very similar technique to the aligned rhombi that I did in my last stream. And we're going to have the same kinds of things sitting on the back. So this, again, is going to be done in columns, and then those columns are going to propagate out. So what I've got in front of me is a 24-fold triangle grid on a square. I had to check there for my little pinch marks that show that I did divide in thirds. And the driving force, the motivation behind all this, is to get to a point where you know how to arrange rhombi around a hexagon, how to arrange 3 around a triangle, how to arrange 4 around the triangle with the extra pleat, and how to arrange in an aligned way, and how to arrange 4 around the triangle with the extra pleat in a chevron style. So with those 4 pieces of information, you're then able to fold really any flagstone with rhombi showing on the front that you like. And this is the last of my series on the flagstone techniques. And good morning, Nancy. So for starters, we're going to put in our central rhombus. And I've got my center of the paper marked there. This I'm kind of eyeballing, but also I can see my pinch mark down here. I can see my quarter pinch from setting up the triangle grid. And these are both telling me that that is my center point. So I'm actually going to rotate the paper so that my edge parallel grid lines are vertical. And then zooming in a bit here, just so you can have the exact same setup that I have, I'm going to use this as my central diamond. So that means my through line is going through here. And I'm going to choose for this to be a right-handed twist, which puts my diagonals here and the valleys counterclockwise relative to their parallel mountain. So this is the starting setup. Again, this was the center point of the grid. We can't fully center this because it's all of the positions of rotational symmetry are not on grid intersections in this pattern. So what I'm going to do is bring up my mountain folds. And I'm using both hands and kind of bouncing off the table a bit to do this. And so I've got this lifted in the air. And in order to get everything down flat again, I need both the mountain and the valley for each of these folds. And I'll go ahead and squash my twist. So from here, I want to add another rhombus, and it doesn't matter so much which direction I add it, because I'm going to end up, and I may as well match exactly what's going on in here. Let's see which of these. Okay, this column. Actually, they should all, no, they're not all right-handed. So this one's going to be my right-handed ones, and this orientation matches. Okay. So I've got Now my edge parallels horizontal, and I'm going to stick the next rhombus up above. In order to do that, I need to get some triangle twists in place first, namely a triangle right at the tip of this rhombus. So I'm going to flip over left to right, and in order to get a triangle right at the tip of the rhombus, its center is going to need to be one spacing out from the closed slit. And I'm going to lift this up, and you'll see that well, okay, hold on a second. Let's flip back and reassess. Okay, so that pleat was this one. What I actually want to be working on is this one up here. So here's how you can make sure you're on the right pleat when you flip your paper over. You can grab that pleat with your hand and flip, and this time I flipped top to bottom, and I want to come in and come one spacing out on that pleat and put in my closed triangle twist. You might be able to tell I have not been sleeping particularly well lately, but I'm doing fine. I'll make it through. And so now that I've got that closed triangle one spacing out from the closed slit, I can go ahead and squash, and I'll flip back again vertically, and I'm going to be putting the next rhombus up above here. So this corner is going to be a corner of the central diamond of my new rhombus. And so actually, is that going to be the case? That does not look right. That really does not look right. Why does that not look right? Here we are experiencing some difficulties. But no worries, we can always go for the other direction of column, not to fear. So I can run a valley out this way and pop that down. Yeah, you might be thinking, these are really some situations where I might consider doing a test fold before I go live and teach. But no. I mean, I'm already folding about a tessellation a day, and my hands would really give out if I were to do that. Okay. So we've got our new central diamond. I've run that valley through, popped down the mountain that was going out from the fat corner of the initial rhombus, and I've got a triangle wrap underneath so I can set up my next rhombus. And I'm going to squiggle through these lines because most likely they are not going to apply when we move forward. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. So with this setup in place, I'm going to repeat those steps. I'm going to flip, this time left to right, squash the triangle that was set up, and this time I get to kind of cheat because I can see that I need to make another copy of whatever triangle I want, so either this way or this way. And I can use my information from the previous time we did this to say, okay, these triangle corners are going to touch. I need to put the next one here. I'm going to get these two pleats that are really close to each other and squash. And then if I want to, I can even pop this down to set up the next triangle in advance. And I'll leave it sitting on top because I'm going to be using that when I flip over, see up here, to set up my next rhombus twist. And really, the order that you fold these two triangles when you put in the new rhombus is quite arbitrary. So I could have instead chosen to fold this upper triangle first. And then set up the lower one as the wrap. And that actually is a smoother sequence. And I just realized I flipped the opposite direction. So flipping back in the orientation we had it, that lets us set up our next rhombus. And I'm going to be repeating these steps the rest of the way across the paper. So I kind of liked how we did it that last time with the top triangle leading and the bottom triangle following. Or another way to phrase it is the triangle on the diagonal pleat leading and the one on the through line following. And this one's getting to the edge of the paper, so we're gonna have a little bit more difficulty getting it flat. And we've got the wrap underneath, which when we flip over, we'll get most of a rhombus twist. Now I still need to extend this column down in the other direction. So once I squash that triangle twist that was set up, and I can go ahead and do the partial triangle here. It'll end up being nice to have when we do the next column. I'm going to rotate halfway around and continue in exactly the same way. So I've got that triangle from the diagonal pleat, then the triangle set up on the through line pleat that is passing under our first triangle, but not creasing through it. And I'm going to flip vertically so it stays on my right hand side to set up my new rhombus. And everything should be nice and happy to lay flat by the time you squash. There was a little bit of wiggle room here in this upper corner of the rhombus that wasn't quite wanting to lay flat, but I just made sure that it was indeed laying flat before I squashed, and it didn't give me any further trouble. And so I continue on, repeating. So a story while we fold repetitive things. When I was first asked to do this Flagstone series, I was like, flagstones aren't really my thing. And then I thought about it more, and another person asked me to do it, and thought about it more, and another person asked me, and I was like, well, okay. And someone had asked me specifically to teach this flagstone, which even for me to fold it takes over an hour, so to teach it would take at least 2 hours. And I was thinking, well, okay, I can break down all of these techniques. I can see, like, okay, here's rhombuses interacting in this way, here's rhombuses interacting in that way. And what I hadn't seen before was this chevron arrangement of rhombi, just on their own. So that was something that I wasn't like following anyone's pattern. I just had to sit down and figure it out. And I had a really good idea of what the result would end up being, like what the technique was that would lead to this result. But I didn't know if it would actually work. And so I had to go and figure that out in order to be able to do this series. And one of the things for me about tessellations is when I have an idea like that, and I'm pretty sure I know how it's going to work, but I don't like actually have proof, that is when I can't sleep until I go fold it. It's just how I roll. So down here we've got a little bit that can be a partial rhombus. And now we're basically going to go through and do the same thing we did on the first pass as the last video, where we are splitting the triangle, basically adding another pleat to these triangle twists. And the way that we're doing that is we're taking each flap, each pleat coming out of a triangle, and one spacing out from that triangle, we're going to actually, no, at the triangle, we're going to split it into 2 mountains, and then one spacing out, we split it, the upper part, into 2 mountains again. And we're going to do this all the way down, kind of this zipper structure. And we need to get all of them in order for any of them to lay flat. So I'm going to be zipping along. And notice I'm popping some paper out from the back as I go. And coming right along, getting all of these folds in place until I have them all, and I can lay them down flat. Now this one down here I notice is slightly different from the others, so I'm going to make it the same. So from here we need to figure out where we're putting our next rhombi. And it looks like this drawing that I had wasn't so wrong after all, because I need the corner, the skinny corner, to be up here at the top, and then the fat corner down at that end but let's see if I can get this to happen repeatedly or not. So this is the peril of not testing a lot before you go and do something. So, I mean, last time we had our new rhombuses pointing this way, having their triangle wraps, etc. But this time, we need to do something different. And so, I am going to need to look at my reference. Okay. So what I have folded is not precisely what's on this sheet. Interesting. Improv time. Okay. So, I think that I'm going to need to pop that corner in. Perhaps. Yes. Maybe. That doesn't look like it's going to lay flat. Well, the easiest thing to do in this situation, and I will be putting this into the description, is to open back up until you have that first rhombus. And this time I'm going to be strict about following my demo. Because apparently it is not as straightforward as the previous one. Okay, so I've got this twist that matches this one in the demo, and I'm going to go ahead and start setting up from this side so I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to first have a valley fold going through there. And I'm going to do a zigzag wrap to get around the mountain. And yes, I will have the next mountain coming under here, which at this point I'll leave the pleat on top as a overlap. And then I can squash this new rhombus right next to the old one in the proper orientation. So from here, I'm going to figure out how to do these bits that connect them. This one looks like a straightforward wrap, but I'm going to challenge that by pulling this bit up and we can see that there's secretly 4 pleats going into it. I can squash the one closest into one of my rhombi. And then over here, I'm going to open it up and likewise find that little I-beam structure. So I had to open my pleat overlap to get that in place. And then I can squash one side or the other of that I-beam. So this is looking a bit more complex than the other structure that we have. Not to worry. Never worry. What we're going to attempt here is to put in another rhombus and see if we can stretch this out this way, because I mean, any way we slice it, we're going to have these single width tube structures. So however we want to do things, those will be in place. But I think that the easiest way to move forward, instead of doing the whole column, is going to be to put in our next twist. And remember, these are going to face each other this way. So I'm going to need my valley popping through the top, but not the bottom pleat here. And that will allow me to do a triangle wrap there. And I'm going to need to make that a double depth wrap to get the next rhombus in place. And down here, I'm going to poke in as if I was doing the next column of the last streams video. And basically here I'm confirming that this will all work out before I do anything that locks me into a certain mode. So there I've got a rhombus and it's sitting happily in place. And I'm going to go ahead and do a 4th rhombus here. And yeah, no worries, Nancy, about coming back and watching later. The problem solving is what flagstones are all about. So here I'm going to again need a valley coming one spacing from the corner of my existing twist. Popping that down, I do get a triangle wrap out of there. And I have this rhombus coming into being, and I'm running into all kinds of pleats down here that I should probably be doing something about. And so what if I have my rhombus come in down here instead and let this upper bit kind of wrap around and have that pleat going out there and pleat coming in underneath. Yes, I think this is the stable solution. So this one is going to need a pleat coming through here. So this one's definitely not as easy as the last one. but still we can find solutions that get us through. Okay. So, if I'm remembering correctly from when I did the demo piece, the easiest way to move forward is actually up this seam, or probably down the seam as well. So we can take care of our really overlapped places real quick. So anytime I've got an overlap like that, I want to try and find an I-beam structure, because those I-beam structures are those triangles with the extra pleat. And anytime I have a big wrap, I can go ahead and turn that into a triangle. And here I have another overlap that I need to turn into an I-beam. And you can see just trying to brute force it was not being very useful, so I tried again a little bit softer with pushing from the back. And now that those are taken care of, flip back to our chevron side. Okay. So far, so good. Believe it or not. And what we can do here is keep adding on. And we want to be paying attention, particularly to the tips of our rhombuses. So zooming in on that, the tip of this rhombus is coming in and immediately splitting into two different pleats. And this is also happening in here and in here. So it's splitting under that one. So that's what we're going for with the tips of our rhombi. So, in order to fold the next set, and here we've got it on this side, we don't yet have it on the other side, which is a cause for concern. So I will, instead of having that triangle underneath flattened, I will put it back as the wrap going in, or actually as a third of a hexagon, really. So instead of having this flattened out, I put it back here so we can see what the end state is and then decide what to flatten. And that gets both of these tips in a good orientation. And then I'm going to want to add the next rhombus in here with the fat end coming off of the pleat in from center, skinny end coming up here, and skinny end is going to split to put other stuff in place. Got this pleat going down and in. That might not be a sustainable solution, but I do know that this is the location of my next rhombus here. And so I can squash that to get it into place. And I'm going to see what I can do in that corner there. I'm going to need to pop this down. And so I can wrap stuff around and squash that triangle. It's just not very pretty. I'm going to have some kind of flap on the other side. I'm going to have this flap sticking over on top. And that actually might be a key to whatever we're doing next. But in the meantime, we need to put in our next rhombus down here. I'm going to need to pick some triangle to squash. I'm going to choose the same one that worked, well, not quite. It looks like the same one that's working out over there, but I can see some differences in how things are connecting. That is a cause for concern. If I do it this way, who knows? We might get some better results. And flipping over, one of the things that I know is that this tip of a rhombus is going to need to have stuff pop down around it. And so I can bring up another fat corner sitting here. Although, let's see, let us see what we can and cannot do. I think that triangle. Well, this is interesting. I know it works. I know it works here. Just getting it to do the thing while I'm on camera is the interesting part. So I'm going to need rhombus stuff going on. I'm going to need eventually stuff happening over here. Now I am having doubts about this rhombus, because it does not seem to be behaving like it should, according to the relationship between these two. So, recalculating. Instead of putting it there, how about I do it, yes, here. Sorry, y'all, this is not the pretty explanation that I had planned for today. So, something is going on with the triangle right there. Whenever things aren't working, I always check that my pleats are actually on grid lines. And that everything actually has the potential to lay flat. This one I'm going to need to do a bit of work on. Perhaps. Yes. And that is going to tuck in there. We're going to have our next twist come out of here. That's a mess. Sorry guys, I didn't remember this being such a hard thing to fold. And that is going to tuck into a pocket of some kind. This is going to have its own pocket. We wrap around like this. Come on, paper, don't fail me now. Also, this is why I work with Skytone. Fun fact, you can really beat it up before it wimps out on you. And yes, this is the other rhombus taking shape over here. And I'm just going to fold that through for now. Okay. At some point, I will figure out an easy folding sequence for this, and then I will explain it to you. Isn't that lovely? So I've got the next two, kind of. And we have a whole bunch of funky business. I've got a point that needs to squash into a triangle down there. Turns out one of those triangles that I had tried originally actually does work out. That can lay flat like that. And we have still a mess right here. That is going to need to pop down into something. Which looks like it wants to go ahead and be the next rhombus in here. And it also wants to, back that. Let's see if we can get this sucker to lay flat. How about by just putting in lots of Mira type stuff until ta-da. And yeah, this one is really unhappy. Okay, at least we can get a triangle there. And this is the point where I say, flagstones are hard, y'all. But, okay, so that needs something figured out. The I-beam. These plates going every which way. Got a triangle that I had somehow used before. And we want to have more stuff going on in there, but let's not do that yet. Okay, so we've got this non-flatness over here that is not super resolvable at the moment. I could zigzag it to get out of the danger zone, so to speak. And now everything is laying flat, although not particularly happy. Okay. Let's try, emphasis on try, to go in a different direction. Let's try and go up this seam. So we know from everything that we've seen so far that we're going to need to have these 2 points coming in. So we've got these 2 going out, but we're going to need to blossom this out to have 2 new points coming in. So let's take a look at that. That actually is the part that's solid. I'm going to have a through line actually going out this way with the central diamond here. And I'll run these valleys like this around. And then the next through line is actually going to go out this way. We're going to get up and down around here. These are going to come up and fit in each other as if we were doing just rhombi. And then this needs to have a bit of extra hope to deal with the new pleat coming in. So I'm just going to fold through the existing twists. Or can I wrap this somehow? It's still going to go and fold through some stuff, but can I get it to do it a bit less aggressively? Maybe, maybe not. At any rate, I can get it out to here. And that's going to be good enough with the wrap on this side. So zigzag wrap. And at this point, I'm not caring too much about how the pleats are going on this left-hand side. I'm just caring that the local area is flat enough to squash my new rhombi. That is what I know has to be true based on our repeats. We can go and deal with the chaos later. And then I'm going to need to flip over and fold a triangle to lock that into place. And yes, this is a royal miss. A royal miss. But at least that step is repeatable. What I am wondering about here is if this is going to trigger any kind of cascade in what I'm able to fold next. It looks like I'm getting an I-beam in here. I'm going to need to squash one side of the I-beam. So I'm going to pick the one that's closest into the center. And yes, this is air folding central. And that is indeed setting up my next rhombus. Which goes here. And as for the next one, it looks like it should go there, but I am not very trusting of that at this moment. But here goes nothing. And that looks like it is setting up the next rhombus. So far so good. And we're going to need this pleat in here to deal with that. And that's going to pop like that. It's going to pop. We can get things to a semblance of order before we squash them. But yes, very, very much more difficult than I anticipated today. Okay, we've got that rhombus. Let's see what we can do back here to help ourselves out. Maybe this. And this. I'm sensing some contradictory things in here. But hey, if it's laying flat, I'm happy. And that is flat enough to squash these two. So what we want to pay attention to is things that trigger cascades. And I'll zoom out a little because I seem to be going off screen quite a bit. And in this particular tessellation, I am going to advise running for the edge of the paper as soon as possible. So I'm going to build on this, squashing these triangles. Or at least getting as close to a clean squash as I can given the situation. Do that, let it lay flat. And this is why I've been squashing the triangle kind of closest into other stuff, because you might have 3 of these, 4 of these in a row. Kind of making some trouble there. Okay. That seems to be approaching something like a stable repeat. I can get I-beam, maybe. Maybe I get an I-beam, maybe I don't. Maybe I get, I do not want the new rhombus. Lay that down. Do not want that poking up. Lay that down. And at least I can lay this much down flat. Come over here, and it's wanting to pull out a new pair of rhombi. So this one is in a good position. Put this over here. There we go. That needs a triangle first. Find that and squash its triangle before it causes damage somewhere. Okay. And I've got my basically my X-ray rhombus vision helping out here. You can see those kind of sort of taking shape. This is slightly concerning. I kind of want to let that go like that away. Maybe not. Maybe that triangle that I folded was a bit premature. There's that. Here's new pleat coming in. It looks like I'm gonna need to get the rhombus on here as well before I can do anything particularly good. Get that one, this one, this one. Come on, rhombus, I know you want to. Okay, that's getting somewhere. Now, I know that that pleat's in the right place. And these are going to be the next rhombi. Here's where I can bring that triangle back. Stay the same one. You get an I-beam, and you get an I-beam. Let's make that a triangle. And maybe if that is the next triangle, maybe? Maybe not. Looks like it should be, but it's a really horrible place to squash it right now. So I guess today is an exercise of seeing that even people who are good at this still struggle. It's a good lesson to learn. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. Well, it might, but just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're bad at it. And that's another lesson. Okay, so that's in a shape where I can now squash this rhombus, which puts things in a shape where I can more or less squash this rhombus. And that is in a shape where I can squash that triangle. Thank goodness. And this seems to be more or less a repetitive good condition, which we might learn something from by seeing this that is very much not in a good condition. Okay, so this stuff is flat. This stuff is not. Let's see what we can do about that. So I can get that flat. And the next bit wants me to add a layer on. And the next bit wants me to add a layer on to everything. And here I need to squash a triangle. And that lays flat. And we notice that we have this 1, 2, 3 layering that is only going to increase as we go down. Here, I need to squash a triangle. And let's see what I can do about this. So I'm noticing the same pattern happening over here. This is probably how we're going to be able to repeat things further out. And up at the top, there's some very interesting stuff going on. I'm going to go ahead and squash this as a triangle. So let's take this to the bounded case along the edge where we have fewer things to deal with. Let's start by putting in the next rhombus up here, which is going to look like this. Is going to cause a new layer to accumulate on everything. Okay. So that was straightforward enough. Then coming down, this is, believe it or not, my central diamond. So I need to come over here and squash my triangle before I can swing up my new rhombus, which will let me pop up a new rhombus, pop up another. I like where this is going. Pop up another. I'm going to splash these from bottom to top. This is going to be one massive pleat wrapped around the back. Okay, we have reached serenity. Okay, this is very promising. All right, so from here, we're going to flip over, and on each of these, we need to find the I-beam. So here we have and the generalization I'm going to say is going to come with the next set of repeats, because this is looking very, very promising. Which that away, huh? Okay, and these are all going to wrap underneath together and squash. I even get to use this thing that was already creased when I did the first round incorrectly. Now we're going to come out here and have new rhombuses ready to put into place. Okay, so with the right initial setup, this can indeed be a rapid process. Hey, okay. So let's see first if the stream survived my my computer timing out. And now what I want to do on this end is get the next get the next rhombuses set up on this end so I can have that long edge. So I'm going to not do that. That is not going to be full to me. I'm going to need it to be here, because this one is here. And so the fiddly bits soon will be confined to this. Okay, the fiddly bits will soon be confined. We have a plan. See, this is what is exciting to me about tessellations. They might seem impossible at first, but there's always something that will help it to come into being. So I need to have the next rhombus. Ah, there it is. And that is going to cause a cascade here. With these guys adding another level. Okay, so I had to do all that to get back up to here. I'm going to let that lay flat for now while I throw away that this triangle can lay flat by sacrificing rhombus. And at this point, I can squash these rhombi. And again, I am doing some air folding here. Okay, that's, yeah. Okay. And this is automatically bringing the next rhombus in the column along for the ride. I need to pause here to squash a triangle. Because I pinched it where it needed to squash, it's squash nice. Okay, in here, I need to squash a triangle. In here, I need to squash a triangle. And voila, here we are. We've got this nested stuff, and I can even extend that down here. And this is looking real Mira Ori-like. While I deal with this end of things. That needs to be a triangle. And that's going to get me another round of the Mira, isn't it? So that triangle sets off another round. Okay. Okay. And okay. Let's finish these columns out to the edge and then do the zipper squashes. So we're gonna have a new rhombus here, which will have its neighbor there. And this will set off another round of Mira. Yes. Is where it goes. Now getting this guy to be where it needs to be is the question of the day, and that, yes, there. Perhaps. Jeez. Okay. So that's what's going to happen there. And this is why you should always set up your full column first. Okay. So squashing this, I'm going to need to get it up and under that stack. And this one is a very partial bit of rhombus. And that looks to be about as far as I can go with it. Now, I don't know if it's my room heating up or me just feeling the heat. That scarf has got to go. And it's time to work some magic, for lack of a better word. Excuse me, for lack of a better word. Okay, so when I'm setting this up, I've got these guys, and I am popping up, then popping down, and running that plate all the way out. So I'm coming in to the innermost one, popping up, popping down, run the plate out. And these will all line up as one, and we'll get a very big layer on the back side. So I'm not concerned with maintaining the Mura as it goes out. Pop up, pop down, run out, pop up, pop down, run out. One's gonna pop up here, and need that in the background pop down, out. And these are all going to fold to the back. So I'm taking all of these and just wrapping it around to the back side, making sure my pleats are closed and my twists are in the proper place. Each and every one of them. And with that, I am now able to do this zipper. Good Lord. Okay. Okay. So with that, I don't know what's going slightly wonky. Oh. This one down here should actually be like this. And there's a triangle in there that I need to squash, but I can flatten the vast majority of these with my bone folder and get a teeny tiny portion. Okay, so looking at the back, I can see that triangle that I need to flatten. And in the process of setting up my next triangles on the back, I am going to end up, and actually while I'm here, since I flattened that triangle, I can go ahead and squash all the way down into this corner. Come on, little buddy. Very nice. Okay. There we go. And I mean, as you know, this is experimental, very experimental. So what I'm going to need to do, I'm going to conjecture that the mirror is going to go in the opposite direction. I'm going to set up an eye for this guy, this guy, okay. And I'm seeing the start of the mirror. And what I really want here is a way to squash these triangles. So I am not running everything down through just yet. I am setting up, and it looks like the setup will be easier from the bottom to the top, where I've got this eye down here. That even, okay, I can even squash that. And then the next eye, I can wrap that around to squash that. And the next, I can bring up and not there. Okay, I can bring up, and every time I'm bringing this deeper, setting up and squashing. This is instead of doing the mirror. And then the next one, I'll do some up here because this is going to be a better process. Come out one, go up, I need to down. So this is a mountain for 2 spaces, this is a mountain for 2 spaces. Now I'm going even deeper under to the other side and squash. And if I were to run this more in place without squashing in between, it would look like this. And then I would squash and squash. And so I'm taking that whole flap underneath, just like I did working from the other side. I can get that partial triangle there too. And partial triangle down here. It's gonna with that push down and set up that. So just wrapping around this edge instead of being a twist. Okay. So from there, I can flip back to the rhombus side. And now it's getting clearer. It's getting clearer. Yay. What I need to do. So I need to pop this up to set up my rhombus. I'm running the through line through, popping it up, and splitting it right at the end of that through line. Popping up the through line and splitting it right at the end. And notice as I'm adding more, this is getting deeper. And making sure these pleats that have been split, or the ones running out to the edge parallel to each other, are actually closing. And with those closed, I can wrap all the way under. And for some value of zippy, zip through and squash each of these rhombi in turn. So it is a column zippy structure, but it's the opposite column zippy structure. Okay, so we're going in here and setting up our next I-beams for the triangles. Got some pleats going out to the edge there. And once those have all been set up, we can wrap that whole flap to the back and go boom, 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 boom. And flip. And now, remember, we need to pay attention to where the tips of our rhombuses are. The tips are going to be where the tips of the previous ones were. So we need to make sure that our new rhombuses are facing the right direction. This one, for some reason, I already have pre-paced, which is pure coincidence. and these diagonals are going to pop under the lines that come out from the through line. With that, we'll be able to wrap the whole thing back. And as I'm getting closer to the edge of the paper, I'm preferentially squashing those rhombi in the middle of the row first. This one didn't squash very well, so I'm going to go in the bone folder from behind and help it get closer to that corner. And I've got this partial rhombus down here. And flipping over, we can get those I-beams. And with that, we can wrap the flap to the back and squash some triangles. And come back to the front side. Excuse me. And place our new rhombi, what little there are left of them. And we need to pay extra attention as we get close to the edge, because these guys do not play nice. Okay, this flap is coming from up here, it's going to down there. And I can just go ahead and do this partial twist. And that will be okay. And then we can get whatever partial triangles we can get on that last bit on the edge. Okay, we made it. We made it. Hallelujah. Let's do a short recap from the top of what actually worked, because this one was a struggle. Now I do have a grid that I can use real quick. Just grab this 16 that was sitting as a demo for something else that I have planned. Open her up. And so from the top, we've got our triangle grid. I'm going to put in a rhombus close to the center. Now, for this column of rhombi, I need to be very specific about what way I'm stacking them. So this is identical to my rhombus in the center here. And I'm actually going to rotate it so the center point is identical as well. Now I need to stack the next rhombus this way, but I need to split that pleat and have the new fold sticking in like this to set up the next one. And what this is going to want to do is wrap under in both ways. This is eventually going to come into conflict with each other. The wrapping under, that is. And to avoid that conflict, I can flip over, find my I-beam here, and another one down here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the next one as well. And this will split up here. Now these will wrap around. That's not very nice. We do. And I'm going to air squash because that upper corner is not very nice. And so now we have things wrapping around on opposite sides. And I can come back to my rhombus side and put in my next rhombus. Again, deepening how that's wrapping over here. And then I'll need to come back to the triangle side, put in my next I-beam, again deepening there. Get that triangle squashed before I can do anything more over here, which there's very little that I can add. Just this little partial rhombus there. And then I want to continue this line out in the other direction. So I need to find my new rhombus in here. And okay, I need to have rhombus. There we go. And I can bring it up like this. And again, so tucking into the deep on that side, we can start our row. So that's going to be my recommendation for starting. And then the next ones, so we always want to reference off of the thing that's most stable, which in this case is in here. And then we can use that to inform the next thing, which this, okay, that needs to pop one further. Okay, that rhombus was not very happy about being called up. And I can pop up and this guy is going to drop into the pleatless, splitting from the skinny tab. Up. Okay. Okay. So not pull up here, but have that setting up, and then I've got a little bit of conflict in the back there, but I can loosen that while I set up these guys. A little bit of conflict down there too. Not like permanent conflict, but I needed to get it straightened out. And then I can flatten these. Then I'm going to flip over to the triangle side on these guys, the short side, and get that set up. And I'm going to just look for the direction where things are moving easiest. And the key thing that I'm looking for in here is that I've got from the top end of my I-beam, I've got 2 spaces of mount and fold. From the bottom end of the next I-beam, I've got 2 spaces of mount and fold in the opposite direction. And those are 1 spacing apart. From there, we can wrap that under and squash this line of triangles. And I'm running up against the edge of the paper, so I'm going to do this in the air. But this is a flat state. And we can even get this partial triangle here if we want. So emphasis on flat state. We can do that. And flipping over, we can have our next rhombi setting up. We always want to be careful that we are putting things into the appropriate pockets. And on this grid, so this is a 16-fold triangle grid on a hexagon. I'm not able to get too terribly much of this pattern. But hey, at least I don't need to think about what alignment I want it to be with a square. So there's that. And again, hopefully the stream is not dropping off when I haven't touched my mouse in too long and my computer goes into power save mode. Okay. So that is those. And now to work on the other side, I'm going to go to the triangle side first. I'm looking for where I can set up my I-beam with those two spaces of mountain. And that's two spaces up this way and two spaces down this way. And once we have all of these pleats firmly folded, we can fold them around to the back and squash these triangles. And flipping back, we're going to have our new rhombuses in this orientation. And the pleat that comes off of the skinny end is going to be the one that carries through. And once you have all of those, you can fold it to the back. And squash the rhombi. And flipping to the back. It's time to work on those I-beams. And you do want to make sure when you're doing this that you are actually getting I-beams. There were a couple of those that started popping and wanting to be other structures. And once you've got them set up, and everything is happy, we can take those pleats and wrap them to the back. That one came out a little messy. Gotta make sure, especially on the edge, that everything is where it's supposed to be before you squash it. And then the bone folder solves a lot of problems. Then coming back, we want to make sure that we're setting up our rhombi in the right orientation. And we don't have much pleat to bring to the back, but what we do, we will. And we can squash these bits of rhombus, or 2 whole rhombi, and 1 partial down below. And flip over and get as much as we can of an I-beam and squash that triangle. The way I set up my center, that's the corner of the paper that flapped out. And there we go. That is how I should have taught how to fold this, but did not. And so did it again. So happy folding, everyone. And I'll make sure to put timestamps in the description of where the proper tutorial started. See you later.